the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
I don't think that's a stretch. I think we've heard that from many people.
But all right, shall we get into this?
We
Welcome,
shall
everybody.
get into it.
Yes.
We've already tainted this movie.
Welcome to February. I think that when our forefathers were getting together and devising the modern calendar, when they were naming the months, the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather of Scooby-Doo was there, and he got to name month number 2. So, how do you spell
sure
that?
The Founding Fathers didn't make this up.
How do you spell that, Scoob?
No.
So, welcome everybody to another fun-packed episode. This is a 5-bucket episode. We haven't done this in a long time.
No.
We'll always have slow weeks at the theater, so we always have our 5 buckets to lean back on. So as we mentioned, if you listened last week, we did this by a very democratic process. We all put in 2 contenders for this week, spun the wheel, literally spun the wheel, and one of Jeff's picks came up. So Jeff, what are we discussing today?
We are discussing The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938. And this is an 85-year-old movie. It's insane.
Directed by Michael Curtiz, who has an amazing body of work. Everybody in the world has seen a Michael Curtiz movie, even if they don't know.
Yeah, even if they don't know.
Movie.
I didn't know that I had seen one until I saw the guy's filmography.
I mean, he directed Casablanca. He directed White Christmas. He directed just everything under the sun. Just go, if you've never heard of Michael Curtiz, go look him up because he's just got an amazing, amazing body of work. Unbelievably consistent director.
Everybody was excited except for Errol Flynn.
Yeah, they apparently had some issues.
He was not a fan. Did you watch it streaming or did you get the DVD? I don't even know if it's on Blu-ray.
It's on HBO.
Oh, it is.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
I watched it on HBO. That.
Okay. Oh, wow. I didn't even look. I assumed that it wasn't because it's, 1938. So I just got it from my library. I got the DVD.
The two disc set?
They only had the 1 disc. So it came in the box for the 2-disc set.
Oh, but it only had
they
one
only
disc.
had the 1 disc. Yes.
Well, I do own the 2-disc set. And there's a fair amount of special features. Most of it talking about the Technicolor, which is just unbelievable.
It's weird. Because it looks like it's colorized, especially when you look at the skin of the actors. I thought when it started, I'm like, wow, this is in color. But then is this colorized? And looking it up, no, that was early Technicolor.
Yeah, I mean, this was a year before Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. And I was going to say...
very bright.
Yes, very vibrant.
On HBO, because it's like all clean and digital.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, even the DVD is pretty crisp.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I've probably owned this for 15 plus years. It looks glorious. It looks otherworldly. To Jim's point, it is so vibrant. The colors are just so rich. It takes you, it is a fairy tale. And I think they lean heavily into that to give it this feel, right out of a storybook. I don't know. Do guys really run around in the woods in bright red cowls? I don't think so. Not very stealth, but it looks cool. Looks cool on screen.
Now, I'd never seen this before.
Ever.
And so I was pleasantly surprised how closely it hewed to the Disney version of Robin Hood.
No, the Disney version hews, I was going to say. I think it's the other way around, but...
Well, it is the other way around, but I was just pleasantly surprised that I was so familiar with the story already.
Well, we brought this up at the end of last week's episode, which if you go onto IMDb and just type in Robin Hood, there's probably 25 plus Robin Hood movies that come up before this one. This story has been around. I mean, you see in the opening credits that the story takes place in the 1100s. So the story of Robin Hood has been there for a very, very long time. And it has been retold numerous times. But yeah, you watch at Disney, and especially like some of the archery scenes when they get into the competition. I mean, Disney really, even like right down to his costume that he was hiding in, is very reminiscent of what Errol Flynn's wearing here.
Well, I think because this is almost like the adventure movie, and we've seen so many of these kinds of things now in other movies. It's almost been overlaid by its cultural influence. It's almost hard to go back and watch it for itself now because you've seen it influence so many other kinds of movies.
Yeah.
And also because you're familiar with the story if you watch the animated version. But even like the scene when they're having the staff fight on the log. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just think about Daffy Duck.
Yeah, I mean, there's even right, Bugs Bunny, which I think that episode came out a couple years after this. But yeah, there's a scene where Bugs Bunny's in Sherwood Forest, and they actually use the live footage of Errol Flynn swinging in on the rock. Welcome to Sherwood Forest.
And here I am as a kid. Who is this guy? If only
I was thinking
knew.
Of Daffy, where he's supposed to be Robin Hood, and he fights on the log.
On the log, yeah.
And he says, it's $1.25 quarterstaff.
Right. But you're right, because we'll get into, especially now, you can't watch this and not see some of the influences that George Lucas picked up on for Star Wars. But it is, again, it's an 85-year-old movie. So a lot of people grew up around this and took away some stuff. Yeah. It's pretty cut and dry. I mean, if you know the Robin Hood lore, it doesn't really stray from that at anything. It's very, like I said, it's very fairy tale. I want to say, Jim, that I probably saw this on, WPIX channel 11 on the Sunday morning at 11.
Mm-hmm. Because you most likely did. Yeah.
Because, Robin Hood, the Disney Robin Hood, is probably one of the very first movies I ever saw in a theater as a kid, and that came out 74
73
73 74
yeah.
73. Pretty sure that I didn't see this prior. I probably saw the original, did the animated version first, and then stumbled across this. But again, with the even in the olden days, the bright colors just really captivate you and kind of suck you in. That this is it's fun. To me, this is just a very, very fun movie. And say what you will about what was going on behind the scenes with Errol Flynn. He is just chewing up the scenery. He is just enjoying himself. He is just a very laid back dude who didn't really care about anything, even though he claims that he's fighting for the poor. He's stealing food left and right.
Character wise, it seems like he's enjoying this a little bit too much. It's like he's like, I do this because I like it, not because I'm in it for the poor. You could see how he was a movie star in his time because he is very charming and he is very likable in this role. We were saying before we started recording, going and looking at this guy's history and his biography is a bit shocking because it's very hard to reconcile. But yeah, I think as a kid, I would have loved this. And maybe because it had the, that 30s stigma to it that I didn't really find the need to seek it out when it was on TV. But I think that was to my detriment now because I think I would have been a fan of this movie.
Did anybody else think that Little John was Skipper from Gilligan's Island?
Well, isn't that his father?
Yeah, it is his father. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he looks just like him. I don't think he lasted much.
Because I was like Alan Hale Sr. That looks familiar, but not quite. There's one letter off.
Just a little bit off. But yeah, I think that man passed away at 50. He didn't last. Although I think he played this character in 2 other movies. So he stuck to Sherwood Forest.
Like in different decades. It wasn't
right. He just kept coming back on. Yeah, I know that role. I'll play it.
Yeah. With different Robin Hoods, by the way. And that was an interesting story as well. How, of course, this made money. I don't know if it made enough money to really be a huge hit because of the huge costs of the Technicolor cameras, which put it over $1 million, the budget, which is like unheard of at the time. But because it was so popular, they were looking into a sequel pretty quickly, but it just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, a lot of that had to do with the fact that you were right on the cusp of World War II there. And the government didn't want resources being spent on a movie.
Yeah.
So they cut back, and by the time they got it up and going again, everyone else was, I think some of the actors were no longer even associated with Warner Brothers.
But as you're saying, this story is familiar with anyone who's even seen one Robin Hood movie over the decades. 1191, King Richard has been captured in the Crusades, and his evil brother, Prince John, has taken over. And of course, he is taxing the poor into oblivion. And Robin Locksley, who is a landowner and he's kind of affluent himself, takes it upon himself to be the spokesperson and the champion of the poor. So there's many run-ins between Robin and Guy of Gisborne, the Sheriff of Nottingham, and Prince John. And as he builds his merry men, including Little John, Friar Tuck, all those characters that you're familiar with, and romancing Maid Marian in the process, he bests, with the help of the returning King Richard, Prince John. Now, that shouldn't be a spoiler to anybody.
Well, there you go.
You're cursing me out there.
Our review
Movie's
is
over.
done.
But all those elements that you're so familiar with, even if you just watch the Disney movie, they're here in this one.
There.
So
minus Sir Hiss, though. You don't get Sir Hiss, which is he's greatly missed.
I was missing the scene with the taking off the rings as well.
sucking the jewels right out of the rings.
A beautiful record of cinema of that time. And as you said, a year before Wizard of Oz. So this probably was a great novelty, not only to see like a rollicking action type picture like this, but in color.
Yeah, it would have been a spectacle. I don't know. Did they not invent cutlery back then? Because everyone's just grabbing food and glomming down on it.
There were no utensils in medieval times, therefore there are no utensils at medieval times. That's from Cable Guy.
That's from Cable Guy.
Yeah.
Wow. You're digging deep on that one.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, because I'm like,
the Star Trek sound effects.
Yes. Ginny Garofalo is the waitress.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking of sound effects, the guy who was actually the stunt coordinator, hold on one second, I'll give you his name, was Howard Hill, and he created a specific arrow to make that noise. That is not a sound effect. That is actually the sound that the arrows make.
The crazy thing about it, when you're seeing all these guys, it's very chaste and bloodless killing in this movie, because you see no bloodletting when they're getting shot with arrows. But reading how they're actually shooting these people with arrows with because they have like a covering of balsa wood under their costume. So
they're really shooting them.
They're really shooting them.
OSHA, where were you? They were paid $150 per arrow. Do you think that would really have covered your medical bills?
Ooh, man.
Dude, you better be dead shot.
Akira Kurosawa did that to Toshiro Mifune in Throne of Blood. He had like this barrage of arrows shot at his head, and somebody who worked with him on the set, Minoru Chiaki, said that look of terror on his face is real.
It's real. Yes. Yeah. All right. It's like, all right, stand over here. I'm going to put an apple on your head and shoot it off. No, you're not. No, wait, you're going to do what? Yeah, we haven't invented special effects yet. So we're just going to really shoot you.
Yeah. Imagine though, that you're terrified, right? That somebody's going to shoot you with an arrow and miss the balsa wood that's right on your chest. And then you've got to act as you're figuring out, did it hit me? Am I dead? The setup is that Richard, as I said, is been captured in the Crusades, and they're holding him for ransom. His captors, I think, $150,000. I think was the.
How long does it take the ransom note to get back to you? I mean, they said he was in Austria somewhere.
He was probably already out because he was on his way home by the time that note came back. But no, I think there was a few months they established in between them getting that ransom note and then Richard finally appearing at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Prince John's like, oh, we'll just tax people and we'll collect the money. And
we'll say it's for Richard. So they'll give us the money willingly and then we'll just keep it.
But the weird thing is so I love the reveal that King Richard and his men have escaped and they're on their way back. And when Robin's introduced to him, but he doesn't recognize him. I'm like, you wouldn't recognize your own king?
Until he takes off the robe and he's got, the Richard Lionheart outfit.
But meanwhile, those robes were like these glorious Technicolor, like they just stood out. And I'm like, nice way to blend in there, dudes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, they must have thought that they were the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings.
Well, that was later when they all
Yeah.
magically had black cloaks. It's like, what do you got? Like
Yeah.
a chest in the back there?
But there's
Yeah,
a great scene in the beginning when Prince John is holding his first banquet. They're kvetching about Robin causing trouble. And who walks into
and
the
he
banquet?
just walks right in. He's like, that's convenient timing right there. Did somebody talk about me?
And of
Yeah.
course, he's leaning back in his chair like he's got no care in the world that they're
That's
about to kill him.
great.
He's
But this is-
insulting everybody.
Yeah, and then fights his way out of there.
And then he easily fights his way out of there, which is great. I was expecting, I wanted that Star Wars moment where he has Lady Marion and then they both swing over like a ravine or something. But unfortunately, it never happened.
You got close to it. He swung alone later in the woods.
Yeah, there's a lot of Tarzan swings. And I love the fact that, of course, this is not filmed in England. It's filmed in a park in Northern California that's like 10 miles long. But I was reading that they had to disguise telephone poles with brush so you couldn't see them. But there's a lot of swinging.
Verizon does now with the fake trees for the yeah. I did read that they were even painting like some of the leaves and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Get that green hue. But you mentioned the budget. Half of it went. They built a real castle. That was a full set.
Did they? That wasn't in the long shots. That wasn't a matte painting.
No, the one up on the hill is easily a matte shot. But the physical.
But the set where the actors were actually
working portcullis and drawbridge. Although they never actually used the drawbridge, they never raised or lowered it. So waste of money there.
This is like the iconic scene. I think this is the scene that even if you haven't seen the movie, where he's fighting in this banquet hall to escape, and then of course the soldiers chasing him. They're still riding as they're getting shot because they're really getting shot. So they're probably like closing their eyes and
they're like, "Dude, you go in front. You go front." No, you're supposed to get shot. No, that's okay. I'll fall back here.
Word spreads. Robin is like, meet me at the Gallows Oak tomorrow. So he builds his band of merry men.
I think they all shopped at the same store. They all had the same outfit on. Yes.
But yeah, then of course we get the other iconic scene where Prince John devises a tournament because Robin will not be able to resist showing off. And he's right. Robin can't stay away from the tournament, but he does get captured.
The cojones on this guy is just off the charts.
Yeah, of course, he does get captured and he's about to be hung, up to the point where he's got the rope around his neck and he's at the gallows. So then his men come in and rescue him and he jumps from the gallows onto the horse with his hands tied behind his back. And apparently that and like one other scene were the only things that Errol Flynn didn't do himself in terms of stunt work. But yeah, impressive. It is a fun ride. So can you, Jeff, being the Star Wars fan that you are, name us some scenes lifted wholesale from this movie by George
I don't know
Lucas?
if I can go scenes wholesale, but you can see there's a lot of influences. I'll tell you this right now. So the score, which was Eric Wolfgang Korngold, also wrote the score for the 20th Century Fanfare that you loved last week. And that was a huge influence for John Williams.
I tip my hat to you, sir.
So that was a big one. But even, listen, George Lucas has made no bones about the fact that he cribbed from everything that he grew up with, whether they were war movies, Kurosawa. A lot of Luke's story is straight up like Arthurian legend, but even the opening, which is very storybook-like, Flash Gordon with the opening scroll. But just look at the relationship between Errol Flynn, between Robin Hood and Marion. She is very much a very strong character, very Princess Leia-like in her commitment. There's a speech toward the end of the movie when they capture her, and she's in front of Prince John. I mean, it really echoes Leia's attitude toward Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin. They disguise themselves to sneak into the castle to rescue her, which is very Star Warsy. The relationship, the back and forth between the two of them. At one point she's even like, "You speak treason." He's like, fluently. He's like full of himself. He's very cocky. He's very Han Solo. Obviously the sword fighting. Replace those swords with lightsabers. And I will say that the duel between the two of them at the end is very iconic when they're coming down the stairs. But then they go off screen and you just see the shadow on the turret gorgeous, brilliant. So,
And let me tell you, Guy of Gisborne takes a hard fall when he falls off those stairs at the end.
Yeah, do you also catch that even though he's supposed to be dead, he flinches when Robin jumps off the steps as well. He's like, "Oh, stop!"
He's in the death throes. That's all that is.
Oh, is that what this is?
Yeah.
Listen, I enjoy this. I think it's a lot of fun. Ben Burtt, the sound designer for Star Wars, also makes mention that the arrow sounds are one of his favorite sound effects ever, and he has used them in every Star Wars movie. You know, the merry men jumping out of the trees, very Ewok-ish.
It's very funny, though, because Robin makes them, especially, and I don't want to turn this into a discussion of dark Hollywood, but when Robin is making the merry men take the oath, and one of the things that he makes them swear is they will protect all women. Such a hypocritical statement, knowing...
Maybe he has to,
because these guys are so chaste, and they have nothing but up toward things on their mind. Women are safe in their presence.
Yeah, but meanwhile, there's a whole scene where they're celebrating in the woods with all the jewels, and they have Marion, and then he takes her in the back, and he's like, "Oh, look, this is where we keep all the poor people." I'm like, why are they not celebrating with you? Why are they not?
This is the John Cleese scene from Time. Have you met the poor? Right. Bring in the poor.
Yes,
Bring in the poor. Yeah. They're lovely people here. You'll love them.
Paul and Mary Bland will be very proud of Much for all the whacking over the head with frying pans on those people.
Mm.
He was knocking them down. Although there was some fat shaming going on there with Friar Tuck.
When we were first starting to go to Disney, my wife and I, as adults, I think one of the big characters, one of the grails of characters walking around the park was Friar Tuck, and that was a big deal. I remember
the animated version.
The animated version,
really?
Yeah. So somebody in a costume, yeah.
Oh, I don't think he even exists anymore.
So every once in a while they bring out those characters. It's special. They'll have like a special a day or two, and they'll bring out like these legacy characters basically that people saw when they were young. I mean, mostly now, other than sort of like, Mickey, Minnie, Tinkerbell, Peter, like sort of like there's like a set of characters that they do always. They usually just show the most recent film characters.
I would like to see this. Like, I don't even think I knew that they existed. So these costumes are just sitting somewhere in storage, waiting for them to break them out.
Yeah. And hugging Friar Tuck was like hugging a big burlap hard sack.
Sure.
It wasn't like you could sink into him or anything. Yeah.
That's because there's a 120-pound woman inside that costume.
Sweating her ass off.
Yes.
Get me out of here. This guy's touching me. I would love to see that. See, after watching this, now I have to go and immediately watch the Disney Robin Hood.
We'll have to cover that.
He's not as cocky. He's not as cocky as Errol Flynn. Anybody who can throw their head back and laugh like that is that guy he's on point, man.
He already had some box office success with Olivia de Havilland. So that was why the studio wanted to pair them back together here.
I think they made numerous movies together. 3. I want to say 8, but maybe not. Maybe it wasn't. It could have been completely different, though, because you saw that James Cagney was originally cast.
Yes, I did see that.
Which seems a completely different movie.
You immediately think gangster sometimes when you think James Cagney,
sure,
but he did, his career was varied as well. Yeah, Yankee Doodle Dandy. So he could do other stuff. I doubt it would be like Scarface in Sherwood Forest. I think he could pull it off, but
it would be a different movie.
Yeah. I wonder if they have grapefruits in Sherwood Forest.
You could use the pomegranate.
At breakfast could actually, he can make some grapefruit juice from her nose.
Her nose.
I found it a very pleasant surprise, and I really enjoyed watching it. So when you were just a tyke watching Star Wars for the first time, I'm sure this didn't occur to you that these parallels were there, but it just makes sense. Your cinematic adolescence, the bridge from Adventures of Robin Hood to Star Wars.
Yeah, no,
it's not that long of a bridge.
No, and again, this is not a Star Wars discussion, but you don't realize all those influences until you really start breaking it down. And he's basically making a Western in space, and especially once we start talking about Kurosawa's in Hidden Fortress and stuff like that. I had never even seen Hidden Fortress until we covered it for the podcast.
Right. But then when you watch Hidden Fortress and you see like some of the scenes are exactly R2D2 and C3PO, like down to the way they move on the screen, you know. Yeah.
So, I mentioned this last week as well, which is I saw this in the theater probably about 15, 20 years ago. Jacob Burns Film Center in Pleasantville ran this series, directors in their favorite movies. And this was, now I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Chris Wedge, you said.
Chris Wedge. That's right. Thank you. Thank you for paying attention. Chris Wedge was coming in. They were filming robots. And so he came in and they screened this movie, which was one of his favorites. And then they did like a Q&A. So it was really fun seeing this on the big screen as well.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
And you think about a movie like this opening, where it's kind of got a lot of the blockbuster elements that you see today. It's got the roguish hero, it's got the action sequences and everything else. And you think this must have blown people's minds back then. But again, it wasn't a huge hit because of the cost of those, mainly the Technicolor cameras.
I still think that I think at the end of the day, it was still like their biggest moneymaker for that year.
But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was number 6, which blows my mind. The budget was in the realm of like I've seen different things, like $1.5 million to $2 million.
Yep.
So it made just shy of 2 million in the US at the box office, but it made 2 million overseas. So if you count that, then it did more than it cost. But yeah, it was the number 6 moneymaker of 1938. It was released in May of that year. Number 1, Boys Town, which made $2.8 million. Then Wizard of Oz comes out the year after, and you're thinking that had to be like the hit of the world, like back then. And that wasn't a huge box office success either. So I don't know.
You guys got to remember a ticket costs like 15 cents. So I think you have to adjust
but you'd
for
at least
inflation.
You'd at least think that it would be the number 1 movie of that year,
Right.
But they weren't.
It wasn't like they were competing with television either. So,
but maybe people, just weren't, the genre audiences weren't there, perhaps at that time, like they are today, different landscape. But it's undeniable at the same time. It is undeniable. You can't resist the charms of this movie, especially if you don't watching it. And I'm glad I didn't look at some of the history, especially of Mr. Flynn before watching this, because I was kind of taken away and, ignorance is bliss. So,
Okay, I just want to clarify because we were just talking about this. So in 1938, Americans bought about 80 million movie tickets per week. So significantly more than today. So, but a ticket only,
like I said, options.
Only cost, according to this, the average movie ticket costs 25 cents, making assessing the highest grossing movies of all time as much as an exercise in math as a statistical collation.
Oh my, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. So these were huge hits. It's just that, it's hard to gauge when you look at the box office numbers.
Yeah. And I don't say that in terms of box office numbers. I just say huge hits in terms of the ranking of that year. Like it's so low on the top 10.
Well, is that based?
That's what surprises me.
So high that it took them so much just to make it back. You mentioned Errol Flynn's autobiography before, and apparently somewhere in there he had mentioned that they had to do numerous reshoots because his male contours were a little too obvious in his stretchy tights. His leotards were a little too revealing. I don't know. I did read too that part of his issue with the director was that he was married to his former wife, so that probably didn't help things either.
No, and there was the one noble thing that I read about him, and all of the stuff that I read was that he was also unhappy because he was an avid horseman, that the director didn't seem to have regard for the safety of the horses on set.
Yeah, I guess they fought during the previous movie they did together, the Charge at the Light Brigade, because I guess there was numerous injuries and deaths of horses. Once again, no OSHA on there. What's going on?
Yeah.
Rapida. Yeah. Well, PETA didn't exist. Indeed. Well, it did win a couple Academy Awards, including Best Original Score. And this was the first time that it was actually awarded to the composer, not to the entire music department. So Korngold got the very first original score Oscar, interior decoration and film editing.
So before that, I wondered, did they have to share one statuette?
It probably just went to the department and sat in their little...
It was like a high school trophy case. And
yes, correct. When you walk into the hallway. Yep. Oh, yeah, that's ours. There it is.
So there you have it. Do you want to officially ring it in?
Officially putting Adventures of Robin Hood as a 5-bucket movie.
There you go.
It's
Sound
in
that fanfare.
It's on. In. Go check it out. So we didn't even know it is on HBO Max. It's fun. It's not a super long movie.
If you have, like I did, that stupid stigma in your head, it's an old movie, I'm going to watch something else. No, it's cinema history. So do yourself a favor and go watch it, and look for those correlations.
You can actually turn it into a drinking game and see how many times his quiver magically fills back up again. It was never-ending quiver.
Yeah, he's like arrows. Hawkeye in this. He is just pulling those things.
They just keep coming.
I stopped counting after a while.
Yeah. I'm like, you're like, all right.
He's still got a full quiver after he's shot like 20 guys.
And he's jumping over the wall and none of them are falling out. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fully intact.
So next week, another one of our recurring episode themes is coming back. The book club. We haven't done this since Wonderstruck or Christine. Was one of those two was the last one that we did, I believe, for the book club. But this is a perfect opportunity because we have a brand new movie. So we're not even going into the archives to pull this movie from. So this hasn't happened since Death on the Nile. We have a brand new movie in theaters next week, and we are going to not only review that, but review the original book that it came from. So, Christina, if you could bring us into what we're doing, because you actually know the author.
Yes. Paul Tremblay, who is a multiple Bram Stoker award-winning novelist, who very kindly blurbed one of my books. I've been on some panels with him, and his book is The Cabin at the End of the World, and we're reviewing that along with the M. Night Shyamalan adaptation, Knock at the Cabin.
Have we all read the book? I know you have, Christina, but that's more to Jeff.
Yeah. So yes, I am finished with the book. It is already back with the library.
Yep. And I just finished it maybe 3 days ago.
Yep.
Cannot wait to talk about this book with you guys.
I will be very curious to see how Mr. M. Night Shyamalan deals with this.
That's one of the fun things about knowing the source material beforehand, to be either
knowing
outraged
what kind of director he is.
is.
Yeah. If you see the trailer, it looks pretty faithful, but this man loves to throw a little twist for the sake of a twist.
And
I do realize when I got to this end of this book, I said, this is why Christina loves this book.
Uh-huh.
Son of a bitch.
It's right up my alley, guys.
But that is next week.
Yeah.
And it will be fun to discuss.
I think I'm going to try out Alamo.
Yeah.
For this one.
Cool. I can't wait to hear your experience there.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited to try their menu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they serve beer? They do.
They serve beer. They
Wine.
serve a lot of things. They actually have, was looking at their webpage. They have like Sunday brunch. They'll do special events. You can order in your seat. Like you can order a burger. You can order all kinds of stuff. They I looked at their menu online. They have like a lot of different kinds of food. But the interesting thing too about the Alamo is if you're under 18, you can't come in without an adult.
Wow.
No packs of
At
kids.
all.
Nope. No packs of kids. So my son will be going with me, but obviously I'm over 18, so he'll be allowed to go in. I am.
Do you get mad when people card you?
I get carded all the time.
Yeah.
It makes my husband insane because he's fully gray.
Yeah, I was gonna say they stopped the other day, and I'm like, Trisha's like, why are you surprised? I'm like, because I still want to get carded.
He's fully gray, like his hair is gray, his beard is gray, he's gray. He's always like, why do you always get carded? I'm like, well, number one, I'm short. Number two, I'm wearing a mask.
Being nice to the young lady.
Like they don't know. I still get called young lady. I went to get my teeth cleaned the other day, and the hygienist was like, okay, sweetie, you can sit down now.
Yeah.
And they give you a lollipop at the
end. That's what it's like.
I was in a store once, and the guy behind the counter called the lady young lady, and she took offense to it. She goes, I am not young. And I'm like, he's trying to give you a compliment. I don't know what. She took it the wrong way. She did not like it. All right, you old hag. Go the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So, all right, we are way off topic here.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
But that's what's coming next week. So come on back. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't do the arrow sound.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. TeePublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
And hugging Friar Tuck was like hugging a big burlap hard sack.
Sure.
It wasn't like you could sink into him or anything. Yeah.
That's because there's a 120-pound woman inside that costume.
Sweating her ass off.
Yes.
Get me out of here. This guy's touching me.